going to invite Melissa Fausz to come up from Americans for Prosperity. She is the deputy director of policy, and the reason why we wanted to invite her and get their participation is because, again, if we don't get the grassroots, the individuals in this country embracing this issue, this is just entrenched interests fighting each other for a bigger slice of the pie, and that's not what this is about. So I wanted Melissa to be able to talk about how grassroots can embrace this issue and what they can bring to the table.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really thrilled to be a part of this event. It's been a really enriching morning for me personally. I'm really looking forward to the afternoon segment. But I am with Americans for Prosperity. I'm really grateful for the shout outs from some of our state partners in North Carolina and Florida. We unfortunately do not have a state chapter in Alabama, though I am from Huntsville, so I'm kind of on a one woman mission to get us an Alabama state chapter. So the minute we have one, we'll be right there with you. But yeah, so this is something that we've been engaging on. I won't go too much into depth about what we've already kind of been doing because I think some of our other speakers have already kind of spoken to the fact that we're engaged already. But we've only engaged in a handful of states, and they're the states where we have those really strong policy partners that have kind of helped us provide the ammunition we need to then go out into the field and message this to the grassroots. And so I actually have a lot of other state directors who are chomping at the bit to get involved in this in this policy, and they're just looking for the right opportunities. So that's why I wanted to come today, is to kind of talk about the utility of grassroots in a movement like this, kind of sell you on it, and hopefully, if you have opportunities, bring them to us so that we can kind of share with you the resources we have to help you guys move the ball along. So there's kind of two primary utilities to having grassroots involved in a policy fight like this. The first one, I'm gonna kind of meander around a bit before I actually get to it because I'm from Alabama and that's what we do. But back in 2000, I think Dr. Stratman really hit on this strongly in the morning, talking about the situation in Virginia with that young mother who lost her child as a result of CON. I think a lot of times people come up against those issues and don't realize what's happened to them in terms of the difficulties they've faced. And just to give a personal example in my own life, in 2008, my grandmother was diagnosed with advanced stage pancreatic cancer. It had already spread to her stomach, her liver, her lungs. So we were in a situation where she needed to immediately go into hospice. My grandparents lived in Florida, in Jacksonville, and the hospice center that was right near my grandparents' house was already at capacity. So the only other hospice center that was available to us that had openings was way across town. Those who are not familiar with Jacksonville, it is a huge spread out city. So from one end to the other, especially with traffic, it can be an hour or two getting across town. So that was the only option for us. That's where we put her. And so my 79-year-old grandfather, who had previously broken his back and had rods in his spine, was sleeping on a cot in her hospice room because that commute back and forth was precious time that he could not spend away from his wife of 53 years. For the rest of us who were in town, we did stay at my grandparents' house and shuttled back and forth every day. It was a long drive, long hours. And the time that we spent on the road back and forth was time that we didn't get to spend with my grandmother that we can't get back. And as devastating as that is, it's not anything compared to losing a newborn child for the lack of a NICU or a lot of the other struggles that people face. And I think there are thousands upon thousands of stories like that out in the States. People who have had to take extra days off work because they only had the option of doing an open surgery where a laparoscopic one might have been available. People who have lack of access to less invasive screening procedures because the state has deemed that those more invasive screening procedures are sufficient. And those kind of hardships are hard to quantify, but they're very real. And I think that that grassroots is uniquely positioned to kind of point those out because it can help identify those stories. When we go out and educate our grassroots, a lot of people say, hey, I had a similar situation. I didn't realize what was keeping me from getting the care that I wanted or needed. And then also, it's a great way to spread those messages once we've identified them. You sell people on their hearts, and then they kind of justify with their minds. And so, especially when you're talking to everyday folks, it's so important to lead the messaging with something that resonates and something that affects them personally. So that's kind of the first utility of grassroots. The second, I don't need to explain to anybody in the room public choice theory. I think we all know, have seen the effects of when you have very entrenched interests that have very concentrated benefits that are going up against a very dispersed and often invisible negative effect for a lot of people. And that's the other way that grassroots kind of comes in, because we can provide the numbers to counterbalance those entrenched interests and really show that no, there is a cohesive opposition on the other side, and we're organized enough to show it. I'm sure every single one of you at some point or another has been the lone voice crying in the wilderness when it comes to this issue or any others. And AFP really has been able to come into those situations and make sure that you're not going it alone. There's a lot of expertise in this room, from litigation to academic research to legislative expertise. AFP is not particularly interested in trying to duplicate those efforts. We don't have those capabilities anyway, but we are interested in elevating your efforts and highlighting them and bringing attention to them. And we have a lot of different avenues for doing that, but we have to identify the opportunities, which is why I'm here today. There's a lot of different stuff we can do depending on the situation. We can co-host or co-brand events. We can hold events if you think there's an opportunity. We can pack committee rooms with people wearing matching t-shirts so legislators know exactly what's going on if there's a critical hearing that you've got going on. We can get our activists. We have 36 state chapters and 1.2 million activists nationwide. We can get those people to call into their legislators and send emails. We can also get them to do patch-through calls to get other people to call their legislator as well. We can do local district office visits with constituents. We can do, even at the very minimum, we have a full policy department and a major comms capability that has a lot of different social media platforms. We drive a lot of web traffic through our website and through our social media platforms. So when you guys release reports or write op-eds, let us know. A perfect example is the op-ed that Dr. Schurz released this week. When he let us know, I had one of our staff write up a blog post summarizing that article, linking to it, driving traffic back to it, put it up on our website, put it on our social media rotation. That's a very low cost thing that we can do pretty much immediately. And as far as all of the other opportunities, I 100% of the time want to hear about them. And if it's something that makes sense for AFP from an ROI perspective and our marginal contribution is really going to move the needle on that opportunity, we definitely want to engage with you guys. So that's kind of the key points that I wanted to make. Hopefully, I already know a lot of you, but for those I don't, I hope we'll get to make the rounds and hook up. And I hope that you will all be very liberal in letting me know when you have ideas or opportunities that grassroots may be able to help, reinforce you, because we don't want anybody going this alone. We can't afford to with the entrenched interests that are on the other side.
That's great. Melissa, thank you so much. Did you have a question?
And I really want to highlight thank you, appreciation for Americans for Prosperity, because I use them. They're actually helping to promote these free market town halls throughout the state. So if nothing else, enlist them to go off and get people to attend the event, and then
Yeah.
you can get the media there. And I just want to say thank you for all your efforts, because it really does help as a legislator. So
I really appreciate that.
and by the way, if you ever tried using the surgerycenterok.com website as a way of saying that's what I want, and use that to mobilize the base, because it's Dr. Smith out of there. You go to that webpage and you can click on a body part and say, here's the out the door pricing. People say, I want that, and it's a good counterbalance to folks who say we just say no. So
Yeah, we can definitely highlight something like that for sure.
okay, great.
Naomi?
Thank you for your presentation.
Mhm.
One of the very small things that I think would really have an impact that we've tested just in a very, very small scale, but I think is more appropriate for a group like yours, is this is a campaign. People do like their hospitals and appreciate them, and certainly there are all those job concerns. But I think more importantly, they like their doctors and their nurses. Um, they hate their hospitals when they get the bill, and no one wants to pay $300 for a Band-Aid. Everyone knows that there is some kind of markup
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. It's kind of one of those red meat perspectives that play really well with our activists in terms of you're being overcharged, they're crying poor. We can prove demonstrably that that's false, and that's the kind of narrative that our activists really love, and they absolutely adore making legislators uncomfortable. So yeah, definitely we can look into trying to mount some sort of campaign. We have a big comms capability, so kind of the sky's the limit on that sort of
Please
thing.
bring that up again this afternoon when we do our open forum and we brainstorm for next steps. That's really good.